I think personally for me, it's always a journey of learning. I think at the Substation I was given a chance. I mean, I think it was my first job as a film programmer, but I think like most people who were, I guess, who are kind of involved in this line of work, we started out as a film audience, and for me, I think the big thing for me was, I think it was around JC at the time. I think it was 16, 17 years old. I think going to, of course, the Singapore International Film Festival was a major factor, but at that time also going to a lot of the regular screenings actually held at Allianz Francaise and I think the Goethe Institute. So I still remember like going to those old places, like, they would hold screenings of old films after the 60 and I think that was a big transformation for me. I guess the so-called the jump from being an audience to a film programmer, I mean, it wasn't something that was actually planned. But I think the big thing when I went to Substation, I realized is that this job as a film programmer is not like any other job. That there's a certain set things that you learn or things you study and all that. But I knew at the Substation that I'm actually starting, and I knew that at the time actually something that I really needed to learn to understand the institution, understand Substation, and what has been done before, to even have an idea of what I can do. So I think when I first started at Substation, I initially spent I think 3 or 4 months just watching everything. So like all the VHS tapes at Substation, I just watched everything. So I went through the program. I kind of went to try to understand why they got to this stage and what they have done. And because I feel that before you can even do anything, I think it's so important to understand where you have come from and what brought the organization to this place at this point of time, and also to understand the context of why they're doing this and how what is really the objective of this before you move on. So I think a lot is just learning, and I think that's the same for the National Museum, the Cinematheque, and then of course the festival as well. When I went to the National Museum, I think it was a wonderful opportunity because at the time the museum was being renovated, so they have a new space. They have a nice theater, 200 plus seater theater, and the idea, I think, a very general sense by the heads of the organization that we want to do something related to film. So the idea of the film program is still there in form. I still remember going to the meeting with my bosses, and so I was asking like, hey, what's your idea of the film program? Oh, let's show some Asian films. So it just sort of remained like that. So I said, wouldn't that be doing something like what the film festival is doing at the time of the SIFF? I said, let's try something out. So I realized that actually sometimes there's not enough thought being put into understanding sort of like I think when we do a film program, we run a festival, or we do anything at all, we are doing it in a community or environment there's other things going on as well. And we really need to understand clearly and define our role in it. I mean, something I felt that at the time that definition is just too vague. And especially so that when you are building an audience for, let's say, independent film, I mean, you don't want to just like do the same thing as like everyone else is doing. You really need to find an area that you can contribute. So I think and of course, it's not just my personal interest in what I want to do, but I think it's really to understand the role of that organization as well, the bigger role of the organization, and find a program that fits both ways, you see. So I guess the template was the idea of a kind of film center in, Cinematheque, that kind of setup. So again, I think the urge is the drive is to really understand as much as I can about how this whole thing works, and so that we can do something. Like, so the strategy was that the big retrospective, the Antonioni's and all that, the plan was that I know that if you want to do a big scale retrospective to be done, let's say for example we're showing like 20 films or 15 films, throughout the entire duration, and within, kind of in isolation, it's not done together with the festival. I better start with the big names first, rather than if I start with someone, like, I don't know, like a Vietnamese filmmaker who's more unknown. So actually the idea was to start off with big, already established, tours and all that. But the plan was to like, we start off with the big European or the international people, and then we start to move to Asia. So if you can see, I think the transition was that we start with Antonioni, Fellini, then we move to Satyajit Ray, then we move to Edward Yang, so we can see we move to Gary Nugroho and that. So in a way, I think it's the kind of letting the audience, we try to bring the audience in, and then when they are with you, you kind of show them more things. So it's a kind of a strategic, gradual thing to bring them to the National Museum. The thing is, I think that like sometimes the question is asked, what's your taste in films and that, and I tell a lot of people that actually really I have no taste, because the thing is, I cannot let my own taste color the work, you see, because I mean I may, let's say, love a certain kind of films, but then when you have that sort of like way, or at least if you approach your work that way, then you're just doing something that you like rather than something that serves the organization. So I think that's a very key thing, that as a programmer, I think we have to be very self-aware that we need to leave that, like aside when we do our work. So for the festival, again, it's understanding our resources that we have, who we are, where we're at. The thing about the Singapore International Film Festival is that whether we like it or not, it kind of we kind of need to exist in the film festival circuit, because just for the fact that all the films that's made within a year, a lot of festivals that's like us, bigger in size, most of them bigger in size, some of them smaller, are kind of fighting for the same film. So we kind of exist within this sort of like ecosystem or industry or festival circuit, they call it. So we need to kind of learn how this whole world works and what we can play with it. So I guess in this film festival world, of course, there's the big festival like Cannes, Berlin, and Venice and all that. And of course they have the highest concentration of power in terms of money, resources, prestige, and glamour. Like, I mean, if you ask any filmmaker, of course they want the films to be competition with Cannes. I mean, so then it goes back to the question, like, there's a festival in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, in an English-speaking country, what do we have to offer? So it's really to ask those questions and to answer those questions and see the resources that we have. Let's say every year for the festival, in order to keep things going, this is what we have. What can we do? What's the best that can come out of it? So I think these are the like just the basic consideration, even before looking at the films. So I think the next step is actually to draw up like the parameters of the festival, which is like, let's say, the competition section, the non-competition sections and all that, and to have that, because that becomes your container for the films to come in. And after that, of course, then the process goes for looking at films and setting up a process where films can get into the festival, and then of course there's the decision and then the final program. let's say for example, if you look at the festival program, the films are there. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways where a film can enter the festival. So of course the most obvious is the call for entry.
Yes.
As films from all over that comes in and you watch the films and you decide yeah. So of course that forms a portion of the festival, but a lot of it actually, I would say that it's actually like it's films that, let's say for example, we know certain filmmakers or we follow certain filmmakers. We know that, let's say they are making a film, that the films we have seen their films before, or this is someone to look out for. Then we will ask for the film directly. In fact, I think the more crucial, in fact, I think for most like international film festivals, that is the key.
Curated.
That is the key. It's not really curated and all that. I mean, of course, you ask for the film, you see the film, but it's not a yes yet. You see, you have to see whether that fits within your program. I mean, it's not you see a film, it's a definite yes. So I think that actually forms quite a major part. To be honest, I feel that the films that come in, maybe half or less than half, or less than half actually. But it could be also films, let's say for example, if we have the chance to, let's say, be at other festivals and where that we have a chance to see. And then also I think after a while, actually the thing about programming films is that you kind of build kind of friendships and relationships, I think, with not just film makers but also film festival programmers and critics or people that you kind of share information with and things that you trust. Like so, like a lot of times, people will ask, or is there something from Singapore or from the region that is interesting, or I will ask people, or is there something from your country that's interesting that you're looking at? So I think it's a network, it's a dialogue, and then of course ultimately you have to make the call. You have to make the call. I mean the rest of stuff, of course, like because when film, okay, the thing is like for bigger titles, let's say for example for like Winter Sleeps and all that, the thing is because when you're talking about independent film, there's also different levels. There's your guy or who makes his film or her film with his friends in Jogja, and no one knows about the film, and then he or she sends the film just to all the festival. Yeah. So there's that compared to, let's say, when Tsai Ming-liang makes a film, the entire world knows, or when he prepares for a film, the entire world knows, and of course everyone wants the film to see. So, and then when that happens, you kind of, depending on how, also the relationship of the filmmaker with the festival, the filmmaker may want to, actually sometimes maybe even some big guys, let's say like Tsai Ming-liang or whoever, because that maybe at the beginning of their career or what, they have a relationship with the festival, they may actually they themselves want to show the film for the festival, and then they want to deal with the festival directly. But of course, a lot of times the distributors or whoever, they deal with the festival, and the motive as a, let's say, as a distributor or sales agent or whatever, if the film has not been bought or the film has not been premiered, they want that film to go to the highest places, to be opening film, closing film in competition and all that. So that's the motive for for those distributors. I feel that as a film programmer, first I think a certain sense of openness is very important. I think only when you open, then things that come to you. So I think this is always, I'm not perfect. I think this is always something I try as much as myself to do, because sometimes when you're watching something that you don't understand or that you haven't seen before, or that's kind of like alien to you, you need to, I think that's the time that you need to be very open. And I think that's a very important quality to have. I think the other thing is also that you cannot just watch films, because I think film form part of the cultural and artistic landscape of any society or country or that. I think when you, let's say for example, when you watch the films of Laos, you can't just watch the film. I think you need to understand the society and all that. And I think that's the beauty of. I think that's what's so interesting about the job. So I think it allows you to understand things deeper, because you can't just stay in your room and just watch films. I think you need to really read. You need to see other art forms happening, then I think you can understand the context of the films that you see, and you can understand that at what point, I think what's interesting about films is like, I think for many countries, I think they have like new wave movements and all that, but I think the films, when let's say French New Wave or even like Taiwan New Wave, but it exists. If you look at history, you can see that it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not that these bunch of filmmakers by themselves they come and make all these wonderful films. It's part of the cultural changes and artistic development within the country itself. So I think as a programmer, you need to see wider, not just films, but the literature of the country, the music, the poetry, the politics, and all that. I think you will see wonder. Thirdly, I would feel that it's a sense of self-awareness is very important. I think you really need to understand, when you watch films, you need to be very aware and also honest about your motives, and when you watch a film, whether a film moves you or why you choose a certain film. I think you need to. I think it's often most difficult to be honest with our own self. So I think this is something that I think as a programmer, I think you need to be very, very honest about whether you're biased, because whether you see, let's say for example, whether you see this film because this film is praised by all the critics in the world, that it must be a great film, or this film is slammed by all the critics in the world. This is definitely, but I think you need to make your own judgment, and then only by being honest and being open and being self-aware, and also by knowing the wider context, that you can make the best judgment.